Happiness, fulfillment, passion, and success. It's what we all want, but it's not always so easy to come by. Welcome to Crossroads. My name is Angela Vessia Wilcox, and I'm your host. I help people realize their dreams. As a life coach, marketing professional, and small business entrepreneur, I figured out a way to make my dreams come true. With this program, Crossroads, my goal is to inspire and motivate people like you to take charge of your life, consider all the possibilities available, and help you make changes that will lead you to pursuing your dream and have the most meaningful and fulfilling life possible.
Hi, welcome to Crossroads. My name's Angela Vessia Wilcox, and I'm your host. Today we're going to be talking with a friend of mine, Kathleen Stirling. She is Director of Global Creative Services for Levis Strauss & Company. She has a very interesting and challenging position. We're going to talk a little bit about that, and then we're going to launch into a real life coaching session. So Kathy, welcome.
Thank you.
To the show.
Very glad to be here. Appreciate it.
Well, why don't we get started and just tell us a little bit about your present position and actually your long history with Levi's and being there for 19 years. So sure. I'm sure there's a lot of stuff that you can talk about there. Let us know what's going on there.
Sure. So I'll probably give you a little overview of how I started there. Levi's is in San Francisco, California, and I grew up in Massachusetts. And after college, I decided on a whim to do a after-college thing, which is drive cross-country in my car, and landed in San Francisco and stumbled upon Levi Strauss. We all knew the jean company, but the environment is one in which, if people have ever been to San Francisco, it's really a campus. It's a beautiful space to work, both physically, and the organization is one that's known for really philanthropic work, as well as obviously making money in the jeans world. And
is that what kind of drew you to
yeah, the environment and the people that work there, they are and have been known to be in the apparel world very human, if you would, in a big world. But when I started 19 years ago, Levi's was one of essentially, we were the only kid on the market. I mean, Levi's, everyone knew Levi's, everyone wanted to wear Levi's. It was such a long history as far as the company's 156 years old, which is phenomenal from the time. It had such history in that Levi Strauss was a real person. He came to the gold rush like everybody else to get in on the gold. And essentially, he wasn't successful at that, but what he did learn was that what was needed was some sturdy work jeans for these people who are in mining and trying to get the gold out of the ground. They needed some more sturdy products. So he was able to work with a denim company, and there Levi's were born. The rivets, the whole 9 yards, and from there it really grew. And it was the only jeans of its type. So when I first started there, it was in '93, and I had a job that was essentially working in the store environment, not physically in the stores, but what I would do is support the stores that needed fixtures and an environment set up so that you could sell the product. So if you would imagine when you'd go into today, if you go into a Macy's or a Kohl's and there's an area that's selling Levi's or Dockers, that would be an environment I would help have set up, the fixtures and the walls and any graphics and those kinds of pieces. So that was sort of more of a fulfillment side. Through the years, that developed into more where I was helping design and build and create those environments as opposed to just supplying them to wholesales and retails. That job's grown over many different layers. I've held different titles within there.
Were you started off with the Dockers brand right off the bat?
Actually, I started off what was Pan brand, so I did both brands in the ad environment. So as you needed to, Dockers launched in '86, and it was still fairly new even when I came along. But Dockers, as its first khaki business in the world, khaki business in the U.S. really took off. It was the way they marketed it. It was, there's some old commercials that people of our age might remember, the Nice Pants campaign, very humorous, but the khaki quality was really high from Dockers. So I worked in both environments trying to help set up parts and pieces. From there, I morphed into more on the Docker side and got more involved in the environment that is Dockers in stores, and then got very involved with the architectural and the design of fixtures and spaces. Don't have any experience in that, but it came sort of naturally, working with a lot of the vendors that we have in the fixture world, and made great relationships with that. And I think from there, running a lot of those programs, and a lot of it is also at the mercy of what stores will let you put those shops in. And when I say that is, we are a wholesale organization. We don't own our own stores. Dockers does not. Levi's does now. So we are negotiating constantly with Macy's or Sears or Kohl's or you name it, the big guys, JCPenney. And so that negotiation, I would partner with the people who were on the sales side of it, but making sure it fit into that environment. From there, the brand went global. So what I mean by that is it's always was being sold overseas, but they were doing everything from the design of the product to what I did in individual regions of the world, Asia Pacific, EU, Canada, Mexico, Latin America. The decision from the company was to bring it in-house in San Francisco, the main corporate office. So from there, my job really expanded to doing what I was doing, but doing that for the world and getting that sent out and training people the ways we would need to do it for consistency, because you would go to Europe and you would see Dockers and it would look very different from what it looked like in the US. And so the idea of consistency across the markets is where we wanted to go. So
No, is that the position that you're holding now, the Director of Global Creative Services?
it is. So the different titles that I've had till I've gotten here don't necessarily matter, but they were different titles, and the director's position was one in which came up about 2 years ago. And that was strictly around store design and store fixtures. That position was eliminated, and I was asked to take over the creative side of that. And so what that truly means is it's still fixtures, but it's everything from packaging. So when you look at product, your packaging, your pieces and parts that are on your clothes, the design of that, photo shoots for point of sale. So when you're in the store and you're seeing imagery of that season's product and lifestyle images, managing that part of it. We do a lot of internal selling for the company because we're global, so to be able to get people on board of what we're trying to say for the spring message and the fall message. In retail, you have, Dockers has 2 seasons, so how do you create an environment and get people and the salespeople involved and excited about the big idea for the season? And when I say big idea is we have a new pant, and we're going to get behind that from our marketing and radio and TV and in an environment. So we build environments to bring not only accounts, but the global teams all around the world to say, this is what we should be looking like globally. So there's a lot of print involved, there's a lot of setup involved, there's a lot of presentations being done to senior management and a lot of layers of approvals, especially as the company has changed and grown. I've probably gone through, in the last 7 or 8 years, 4 different brand presidents, 3 different CEOs. I've got 2 new VPs that have come on, so every one of them has a different opinion of how things should be done. So we may be marching down one road, they come in, we switch roads. It's challenging, and I think for having been there as long as I have, it's gotten more challenging as I've gotten older. And I work with great people and really creative people, but they're not always the best business people to be able to move to make the creative fit into what the world or what the Dockers needs. So the challenges have been there on that part of it. But
So it sounds like, it's a big job, and you've been there a long time. And so I know there's obviously pieces of it that you really do enjoy, and there's parts of it that probably are adding to stress. And so where are you now in terms of, being at this place for such a long time and sort of knowing some of the challenges that the company itself are facing? So
right.
talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, it's been very challenging, and I think a part of it is personally more than even, it is what it is at an organization. I mean, they're going to continue to want to grow and develop the brand and grow the brand as they need to. There's a lot more competition than when I started 20 years ago, and there's a lot more layers of complexity in marketing, from social marketing to, having the budgets to do a Super Bowl commercial, and if your sales aren't there, the marketing budgets aren't going to be there to help get the message out and market it. So you're in this sort of crux, catch-22, because you have to have the sales to have the marketing on it. So it's been frustrating, and I think over the last year, I'm at a place, I think, where my values of doing that work, which is, it can be very exciting, and it sounds like it's a big job, and I travel internationally and have seen many parts of the world and been very fortunate in many things I've been able to do. But I think where I am as a person and growth is one in which there's something else, and I'm not sure what it is. I don't think it's another big corporation, though. I mean, I think it's more of, what do I want to do for me to fulfill me? And for a long time that work did, because I felt like I was making a contribution to a company I believed in and was help moving a brand forward. But
and you were learning a lot too in terms of the different environments.
Yeah, I learned a lot, and I worked with really great people and enjoyed it. It's less enjoyment now, and it's very rote, and some of the work that I'm doing I don't enjoy. It's not a fit for me. So yeah, I think that I'm sort of stuck in having been there as long as I've been there, and clearly the benefits that come with the title and a large organization like that are many, and it's not something to easily walk away from. But at the same time, what do I want as a further for the next 20 years that I'm going to have to work, and it's everything from doing 2 part-time jobs to doing something totally different, but I'm not sure it's back to a corporate world.
And that's kind of one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show, because I think you're sort of, having had these discussions with you at a crossroads in your life, and are thinking that this might be the time that you might want to do something a little bit different, and, but sort of exploring what does that look like for you. So one of the things that we wanted to do on the show was do a sort of a real-time coaching session with you.
Great.
If you're willing. I think one of the first steps that I would love to do with you is sort of do an assessment of where you are now, not just in terms of your career and your job, which is, obviously a big part of it, but also in terms of health and, finances and relationships and all that. So are you willing to
Sure.
get started with that?
I'd love to.
Okay, great. So why don't we start with sort of your physical environment, your home, where you live, talk a little bit about that. What I like to do with this exercise is sort of come up with a number from 1 to 10 in terms of how good you feel like your life is in that area. So if it's really, top notch, I couldn't improve it anymore, I would give it a 10. And if it was something that was really needed some attention and really you're really unhappy with, you would score it very low. So physical environment, let's talk about that. How does that rate for you?
From a home perspective and where I live? Or just...
so you can look at it from your house, your home, your actual physical environment to the city that you live in, so in, broader terms.
for anyone who's been to San Francisco, it is a physically beautiful place, and offers so much. And having been there as long as I have, I mean, there's many things that I love. I think the other thing is, though, where I am truly now. I mean, I live in the city. I have a beautiful condo apartment. It's little yard. My dogs. I live in a part of the city that's the greenest part of the city, so I can get out into woods that are in the city that you wouldn't believe that there's a city sometimes when you're in the woods. But I think as I've gotten older, I'm not so much a city person anymore, so I'd probably give it a 6. I mean,
6?
Yeah.
So there's some room for improvement there.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that a little bit more in terms of how do we get that up to, a 9 or a 10 even.
Okay.
So family and friends, how do you feel that, you're able to spend enough time with them? Do you feel like that's something that really needs attention? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think it does need attention. I think in being where I'm at right now, I'm the type of person that tends to not reach out, but reach in when I'm feeling sort of burnt.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as the quality of both of those, I would say, I'd say an 8.
Great. That's pretty good. How about health?
Mental health, I've been extremely stressful, so I'd probably say that's like 1 from stress and needing to get everything done in the job. Physical health, I could be doing a lot better, and I'd probably give that a 5.
Okay, 5 and 1. Okay, so that's, that's kind of an area that we want to focus on. Finances, money, how are you feeling in terms of that?
Pretty secure. I'd probably give that a 9.
Great. How about your romance, significant other?
My husband. He is incredibly supportive, and basically is someone who's saying, I think you know what to need to do, which is to leave and do something else and experience something else, which is, I know not everybody gets to have that luxury. We don't have children, and we have savings, and but I think the position that I've been in lately has affected how we are and communicate, so I'd probably say it's a 5.
Okay. Now, this one I like talking about fun and recreation. You feel like, is there enough fun in your life? Do you feel like you spend, enough time, doing things that you enjoy on a regular basis?
I would say in general, without being at this crossroads, would you say that would probably have been a 10? I think right now it's probably like a 7.
A 7? Okay. And then personal growth. Now this could be, just from you as a person, is there something, whether it's related to spirituality or, education or whatever it is, like just in a broader sense?
Well, that's hard to answer only because I feel like this is personal growth and that what I need to move forward with doing anything about it, I'd probably give that a 1.
A 1, okay. And then we're right back to career, which is a good, place to start. And what would you rate it? Now we know a bit about your job and sort of what your feelings are, but what would you give that in terms of a number?
Well, I look at it as if someone from the outside would say, it's a fantastic job, and it is, if you were the right person and wanted to do all those things. So, but for me, going in a place of like, I'm not sure this is where it is, probably a 3.
So what I like to do when I sort of finish this exercise, obviously there's lots to talk about, but I try to, draw a little bit of a circle, to see where we are. Like it's sort of a pronged, and we see where the dips are and the, sort of the shape, it kind of morphs into a shape that you can look at and say, these are the areas where it dips down that we really want to focus on. And from when I look at this, I see that we really do want to talk about, your personal growth and your career, your health, and maybe even your home environment. And your relationship. So, there's
Everything.
quite a few areas, but as we know, like one area really affects another area.
Sure.
So if one thing is really falling low on the scale, on the chart, then it very well impacts other areas, which it sounds like might be happening, here. So of the ones that are sort of a little bit lower on the scales, let's say career and personal growth, let's just and even health, let's pick one of those three to talk about and see what is it that we can maybe do to bring it up a couple of notches.
So health, career, and what was the other one?
Personal growth. Those are the ones that rated the lowest.
Okay. Well, I think career is, I need to make some decisions of whether it is something I'm going to continue with. But then the opposite side of that is, what does that look like? I mean, if that is a position that I'm going to leave, clearly need to have a job in this environment. So I guess I would say, with the skills I've acquired over the years, and people do, for me personally, I limit myself to say, I don't have any skills. These are things that I just know and do, and so what else would be the next big thing, or the next thing? It doesn't have to be big. Knowing also that I don't want to be in a large corporation again. I've done that, been that, and I think that's, most organizations are, grass is always greener.
So if we sort of step back and take your present job out of the picture for the moment, for the purpose of this discussion, if we were to make that career pie chart, say from a 3 to a 10, what could you see yourself doing that would make you be jumping out of bed, going to work, wanting to do your work in the morning?
Probably something that was my own.
Mm-hmm.
And that I had more control over, and didn't have as many layers of approvals and discussions, and one of the issues where I'm at now is essentially everybody gets to weigh in, and that stops the work from happening, but yet there's a deadline that my team's still responsible. So I think probably a place where I can make the decision myself and move forward, or less people to have to weigh in on certain things. So to me, that's a smaller organization, or it's myself being able to say, I'm going to make the decision, and right or wrong or indifferent, I'm going to move forward with it.
So it could be a business that you have for yourself, or it could be within an organization that you felt you had control over.
Yeah.
Okay. So what are some of the I don't even want to use the word skills, but what are some of the things that you enjoy doing in terms of what gives you a little bit of passion from a work standpoint? Like, what are the things that you enjoy doing?
When it all clicks in and it's a project that we have to work on, and there is a clear strategy, and I'm able to help set the strategy and see something from beginning to A to Z, it gets done and executed, and on point to what we talked about, there's a good feeling in that. There's also a good feeling in taking a small team and help them lead that project. I actually really like working with the vendors. There's a lot of vendors that, in the fixture side of things, when I was developing and building, partly because it's very much under the radar. People don't understand the construction side of it. People ever think they all know the marketing side, they all know the print side, but fixtures are how to build a chair, or how to, and I have found people, not that I'm an engineer in any way, but can describe to them visually what is needed, and they're able to translate it, and we make it happen in the right price, timing, and those kinds of things. That has been something that I've been very good at.
So it sounds like, kind of taking a project from start to finish and strategizing ways to get it done. And this sort of is a creativity piece of that that you feel is important.
Yeah. It's just when it gets bogged down with
right. And that's where I think it's important to sort of, again, not be thinking in terms of the present job, but thinking in terms of what is it that's the actual work that you're doing, or the actual skill, or the actual talent that you're using, that can translate to any number of sort of careers or positions or jobs, and you said, working with the vendor, so it sounds like maybe interacting with other people is important. And then that leadership component is also important. So if we look at that, we say you are a leader and sort of a project manager and having some creativity. It's like, how do we take those, being able to strategize ideas and seeing it through, like how do we take that and translate it into a different path for you, if that's what you choose to do, those are really translatable skills and talents that, we just want to talk about how do we package that up for you in a better way so that, you start to feel like career, you come back and say, this is really an 8 or 9, and I know how to make it to a 10, so it's, again, it's always thinking about it, in terms of outside the box and thinking about what are my passions, what can I bring to this, and how do I take that and use those passions and those skills and things that I really like into another position. So I think there's obviously more work to do here. We're just really kind of scratching the surface a little bit, but I think, as we talk about it, that's really something that's impacting the rest of your life. So I encourage you to kind of do this exercise for yourself, on a regular basis, and also to even look at each piece of the pie and sort of think about what is it in my physical environment right now, it's a 6. What can I do to bring it up to an 8? So maybe you can't just move out of the city today, but maybe it's simple, like I can create a small space for myself to have this little retreat that I really enjoy going to, and that brings it up a notch, So every piece you can think about, what can I do, in 1 or 2 things in that piece of the pie that can bring it up a notch. How can I spend more time with my family and my friends and be able to bring it up another number, and particularly personal growth, where I think it's one that you scored very low. What passions do you have? What would you want to be learning about and feeling good about? And that, because that's so low, maybe even just signing up for a simple online course could bring it up to a 3 or 4 or 5 or something. So we want to just, take time, go into a quiet room and jot down some things that you think would, be able to you could do in the short term to bring it up. And then look at it over the long term and say, what other things can I do to bring it up even further? That might take a little bit of time, but when you see it down on paper, when you see it all written out for yourself, you start to see the things that you really need to do. So
that makes a lot of sense.
Thank you. It does make sense. So I hope you do that.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Absolutely.
And sharing everything with us. And if anybody would like to be a part of the program, I would love to hear from you. Feel free to contact Norfolk Community Cable at the email address or the website you see on the screen, and we would love to talk with you. So thank you again for coming, and Kathy, I hope you have a great trip back to San Francisco, and I really enjoyed our stay here. It seems like we did some really fun things.
We did.
I hope we were able to bring up a couple of those notches.
No, it's great. No, it's a good plan. It's a plan.
It's a plan.
Yeah,
Great.
it's a start. So
Good.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you again for coming on the show. Thank you.